Okay, lesson 19 still. Second subject is the introduction of Pranayama. Most of what is in the handout has been discussed already up until now. So I'd like to focus on what's not in the handout. And that is, of course, first and foremost, that pranayama is energy control and not breath control. And I'm first going to tell you, I'm going to give you various insights that show without a doubt that pranayama as breath control finds too many inconsistencies, too many elements that are actually impossible. Prana, we know prana is vital energy, like ki or chi energy. Ayama means to give direction to control, to send. So we are sending vital energy. How did this end up being confused with breathing? How did this end up being confused with breathing? That is the limitation that human beings have in general to accept that there is more than the material world. In the Bible, there is the concept of the doubting Thomas. You know who is the doubting Thomas? Thomas.
I'm not sure.
No. The doubting Thomas is almost all of us. The doubting Thomas is the person who does not believe in things that you cannot see with your physical eye, or hear with your physical ear, or touch with your hand, or smell with your nose, or taste with your mouth. Things that are not concrete, we don't believe in. Even our whole modern science is based on that concept. If you can't prove it with concrete numbers and statistics, I have to deny that it exists. Energy is invisible, but we all feel energy if you know where to look. When you go to the toilet, remember how we build towards this? Very systematically, I have tried to make you familiar with energy. When you go to the toilet, there's a huge amount of energy in Muladhara Chakra that you cannot deny. You never noticed before because you didn't know how to look. But you know now. Energy is real. Spirit is real. And yet many people will dispute that. Because, well, where is it? Show me. When I was a teenager, I worked night shifts. During the summer vacation, I worked night shifts at the international airport, Schiphol, Amsterdam airport. In a cargo shipping company. And every Friday night, a truck from the southern province of the Netherlands would come to Schiphol airport and drop off a load of isotopes. Isotopes is nuclear material that is used by hospitals to make X-rays. And these were very small ampules, what do you call these? Yeah? Very small amounts of isotopes packed in a box about this size. From our department, they would then be spread in the northern province. So in the middle of the night, we would jump in a van and go to Alkmaar, other provincial hospitals, and drop off isotopes there. So one evening, the forklift is a small machine to lift those pallets with a fork, but they're very heavy, like 4,000 kilo, because when they lift a load, they have to be prevented from toppling over, so the backside is very heavy. There's a huge lump of steel to keep it on the ground. And tires have no air, they are solid tires. So one evening, one of the fork trucks, a package fell off the pallet, and a fork truck flattened it. It was totally flat. So everybody basically scattered away from where it happened, except one guy. One guy walked towards to it, and everybody, hey, come on, you have to move. We have to call the fire department. And he said, why? There's nothing. I don't see anything, I don't smell anything. There's no gas or anything. It's radiation. That is dangerous. So anyway, that is doubting Thomas. Don't see anything, don't hear anything, don't smell anything. Nothing wrong here. So indeed, the fire brigade came in their hazmat suits with a Geiger counter, the machine, the measuring device with which they measure radiation. And apparently it's so well packed that even the 4,000 kilo weight of the fork truck did not compromise the safety of the contents. So, deep sigh of relief, but just to indicate what the doubting Thomas is. Don't see it, don't hear it, don't smell it, don't taste it, don't feel it, doesn't exist. Why am I telling you this whole long story? Because pranayama is energy control, but throughout history, the technique of pranayama has gone through many hands. Many of those hands belonging to doubting Thomases, who didn't understand what they were looking at, because they were looking at something that in their experience, in their world of existence, it didn't exist. Energy? What energy? How can you control energy? No, it must be breathing. And to make matters worse, the texts are written in such a way, deceiving ways, that the mistake was easily made by unqualified people that pranayama must be breath control. Now there are 8 pranayama exercises. Actually there are 9. The first one is Nadi, Sodhana, Pranayama. Nadi is energy control. Nadi is energy channel, which are basically your nerves. Nadi is an energy channel through which energy flows through your body. Sodhana means cleansing, purifying. So, people who translate pranayama as breath control give the story such a twist that if you breathe, you are purifying your nerve system, your energy channels. Which, if you think of it rationally, sounds illogical. Maybe you cleanse your windpipe and your lungs, but not your energy channels. That's one inconsistency. Another huge inconsistency is that I told you there are 9. In total, there are 9 pranayama exercises. How many of those are actually really practiced in yoga studios where they do breath control? 1? Maybe 2? Nadi Sodhana is one of them. And they do like this. Maybe Ujjayi, which they do in Ashtanga, and they breathe in a very difficult way, making sound. But you know, pranayama has a structure. You take in energy following a certain number of counts. Then you retain the energy. And then you let the energy out. Following a number of counts. And then you have another retention. Now, the count of pranayama is always fixed. And it is fixed according to this ratio. 1 inflow, retention, outflow, retention. This is not the count, this is only the ratio. We start with the basic count according to this ratio of 12, 48, 24, 48. The basic. Systematically, we will build up. At the end of this course, your count will be 20, 80, 40, 80. The ultimate count, however, the maximum count, which you reach in a couple of years, 6, 7 years, is 80, 320, 160, 320. Which means that your pranayama will take about 40, 45 minutes to complete. Can you guess where we're going with this? If pranayama is breathing exercise, you breathe in, counting to 12. But you don't count with seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You count very slow. Om 1, Om 2. Like in English, 1001, 1002, 1003. You count in your own language. You count with Om, Om 1, Om 2, Om 3. Inhale is possible. Everybody can do. Hold your breath, 48. Possible. If you have healthy lungs, with a little bit of practice, you can do this. Now you exhale very, very slowly. It's very slow, counting to 24. Here already you become a little bit difficult, a little bit in trouble. Now after completely emptying your lungs, count to 48. That is already impossible. And you're only at the most basic count. If you increase, and you increase even further, there would be no students left anymore, because you all die. You die. It's impossible. So this in itself should make people think. I learned pranayama, it's breath control, but there is a structure. But we only learn to breathe in and to breathe out, but we never told to hold our breath. Or if they were told to hold their breath, there's not this structure of 1, 4, 2, 4. The ratio. So it's already there is just so much inconsistency. You must, as a critical yogi alert, as a deer, ask questions. What's wrong here? What is not making sense here? The reason why only one or two, like Nadi, Sodhana and Ujjayi, are practiced in most yoga studios where they do breath control, all the others are ignored. Why? Because it's impossible to do. They're simply practically impossible to do as breath control. As energy control, however, we can do all of them. And they are marvelous. Each of those pranayamas has very distinct effects that you can feel. In this class, we learned 5 of them. The first one is basic, Nadi Sodhana, and then we learned 4 of the 8 existing pranayamas. If there's ever an advanced course again, you will learn the other 4 also. Not only do they each have very specific characteristics, effects, the approach also is very systematic and super logical if you understand what you're looking at. Like everything in yoga, there's a very logical build-up and a very logical sequence, a very logical approach that makes it very powerful in terms of how yoga causes change in us. Unlike the yoga that you learn in most other studios will never lead to that kind of transformation of change simply because it doesn't follow that systematic approach, step-by-step approach. Now, through the years, we've had some students who were desperately looking for a solution to their medical problem, a chronic disease. One of them, already at the beginning when I just opened my studio, Juyeon, she came to visit me, and she was very intrigued by our approach. She had read about us. Internet was already available, but not so widely spread yet. But she had read an interview or something, and she visited, and she told me her story. She said, "I'm a yoga teacher, and actually, I never planned to be a yoga teacher, but I practiced yoga to solve my medical problem, and then I naturally became a yoga teacher." So then she explained what the problem is. She was born lacking one vertebra in her lower back. And apparently that caused her energy levels to be very low, which is my estimate, not the medical world's estimate. That led to atopy, a very severe form of atopy, which is a skin disease. She visited me on a warm day, it must have been spring or early autumn, still quite hot in Korea, wearing a turtleneck to cover these huge red rashes that she had all over her body, including her neck, arms, upper body, legs. And she explained, since I was a baby, I had atopy. And it drove my parents and my brother crazy. Because I was always crying. I would wake up in the middle of the night scratching until I bleed, waking up the rest of the family. And we tried everything. We went to the doctor, we went to the clinics, we went to the general hospitals, the famous hospitals, expensive hospitals. And all the doctors can do is suppress the symptoms, the pain, the itch. But the rashes remained as big as they ever were. Having tried everything, they then tried traditional medicine, even quackery. In desperation, you try anything. Then she discovered yoga, and she felt that yoga kind of helped a little bit. So she started practicing yoga fanatically every day, including breath control. Pranayama as breath control. So she felt some relief, but she knew that it must be possible to have even more or better effect. And that's how she ended up with Magic Pond. Basically, just one step out of hundreds of steps that she and her family had taken since she was born to find a solution to that medical problem, to that chronic disease. And I was taught by Ajita, and Ajita bases everything on energy. And chronic disease, Ajita treats people with cancer and other serious chronic diseases. And so I looked at her through the lens of Ajita's approach, trying to feel her energy. And I felt that she was very tamas. Her eyes were kind of slanted, and she would talk in a very soft, almost drugged voice, and it was almost like as if everything was just too heavy. Even raising an arm was too heavy. And so I thought, tamas, she needs more energy. And according to Ajita, a chronic disease that is caused by low energy is caused by a low energy of both types, both Shiva and Shakti. So before she even joined the course, I taught her pranayama one-on-one. And it had almost immediate effect. It worked so well that she started doing it twice a day, 7 days a week. The turtleneck got tossed into a corner, and after a couple of months she came to me and she said, "Ron, my mom is so grateful to you. It's for the first time in 30 years that I have been able to sleep through the night and have not woken up any of the family members. The rashes have reduced considerably." Now, it's a chronic disease for a reason. Structurally, there is something wrong in the body that causes low levels of energy, so it's not a cure. For the rest of her life, she will have to continue practicing pranayama to keep levels of energy up, which she does by default, because only human, sometimes you skip, sometimes you get distracted, you move house and you have to take care of things that keep you from focusing on your practice. But the moment that she does not keep up her practice, the rashes come back with a vengeance. So this proves that pranayama worked for her while she had tried pranayama as breath control. It didn't work. We have another example of a lady in her early 30s who, when she came to me, was very dark, cynical, kind of even aggressive, and it was all because she was suffering tremendous pain as a result of early onslaught of rheumatism, and particularly rheumatism to the spine. And she was very busy because she had 3 sons, young boys, and a diplomat husband. who of course was always busy with his work. And she basically being the foundation of the functioning of that whole family. And she said, Ron, I dread going to sleep. And I didn't see the logic in that. And I said, why do you dread going to sleep? It seems to me that you want to go to sleep so that you don't have to suffer and that you dread waking up. She said, no, I dread going to sleep because I know that I'm going to wake up again. And same story, the medical profession oppresses the symptoms but has no cure, no solution. And in her case, it meant heavy painkillers that really destroyed her mood, that destroyed her happiness. She was just constantly drugged. So, like with Juyeon, I taught her pranayama before the other students would actually start with it according to schedule. And she, in exactly the same way as the other student, felt the potential, and because of that started doing it every morning, every evening. And she became the naughtiest, most playful, pranking student that we ever had. She started joking and giggling and pranking me, and it just made me so proud. It made me feel so good. She got rid of her heavy painkillers, her medicine, simply because she started practicing pranayama. She too practiced yoga for years because it did give some relief, but not to the extent that she could stop taking those terrible painkillers. And I'm still in contact with her, and once in a while she drops me a line, especially when she has not practiced for a couple of days or sometimes weeks, and then starts practicing again. And every time this happens, she is again in awe for how miraculous the pranayama works on her terrible condition. It has made her life livable. She's happy to such extent that she just became very playful and joking around and giggling like a little kid, and just amazing. For me, that's enough proof that pranayama works. So, sadly, I have had more than 1,000 of students that have done this course and learned pranayama. There is only one student who actually went on and taught pranayama in the way that we teach here. All other students move on with their life. If they start teaching yoga, it's often Ashtanga yoga, vinyasa, the drill, the modern yogas. They forget everything that they learned here, including that pranayama. Doubting Thomases, even among yogis. It's difficult. It's difficult to accept the world of the unseen, the world of the untouchable, even for us with expanded consciousness. But when you then, these two facts, the fact that it's simply practically impossible to perform this as breath control, and the fact that people with chronic diseases who suffered all their lives have found enormous relief. No cure, to be sure, both of them, they have to keep practicing. It's a chronic disease for a reason, but such enormous improvement in their condition that they can live normal lives again, or for the first time in their life, in case of the girl with atopy. So we stick to this. And this is what you are going to learn today. Pranayama, whether you believe it or not. I hope that the examples and the logic that I laid out here do make you think about the inconsistencies that you find in pranayama as breath control, and the amazing results that we have achieved also, especially of course, Ajita in the Netherlands with his patients. He's actually really treating patients, something that I just don't feel qualified to do. But amazing results that we achieve with actual pranayama. There's no doubt that it is working and is actually quite powerful at that. So we have Nadi Sodhana Pranayama, and we start this session. In the later session it will change, but we will come to that. And here you can also see that the Kriya exercises make sense and have actually prepared you for this. Kumbhaka is a retention stage. Shiva in. Counting to 12. Slow. Om 1, Om 2, Om 3. To 12. Shiva in through Chandra Bindu. You're not concerned with what happens inside the body, because that is just a distraction. Just focus on Shiva in. At the bottom, you let Shiva out through Surya Bindu, followed by another retention. So retention, counting to 48, slow. Shiva out, 24, and another retention. If you count properly, not too fast, this would take you about 4 to 6 minutes. If it's any shorter than that, you're counting too fast. If it's much longer than that, you're counting slow, but slow is not bad, because slow means it has deeper impact. But too short means that you rush it, that it has less impact on you. So don't count too fast. When you're done, do not repeat. Be austere in your practice and trust that it has an effect on you, even though you don't feel anything. We, as healthy people, we have a problem. Do you realize that? Sounds strange, huh? As healthy people, we have a problem. What's that supposed to mean? Well, people with a disease who start practicing pranayama and immediately feel relief, they think, wow, what is this? I'm going to try this again tomorrow. We are healthy, so healthy that we take nature's medicine in the form of energy, but our energy levels are already pretty good. So what we feel is either very subtle in the form of our concentration will improve as a result of this. That is one of the things that you will immediately notice, is that you're more focused. But you don't notice any spectacular or revolutionary changes in your condition, because your condition is relatively good. You're not suffering from a chronic disease. So I say with a smile that as healthy people we do have a problem. And that is, it's difficult to see how deep the impact of this actually is which for people with a chronic disease that are helped by pranayama is very obvious. It just changes their lives. So this is what we do when you're done. Don't repeat, be austere, one cycle, and you then switch to concentration on nada.
Ram, what did you say? What is kumbhaka?
Yeah, I have to explain. Kumbhaka. Kumbhaka is a retention. And there are many stories about kumbhaka also because it involves what is called the bandas. There are 3 bandas. 2 I will explain. The third one I will explain next week. And just like with the pranayama being explained as breath control, the bandhas are also explained in a very superficial way, or sometimes even wrong. In Ashtanga Yoga, for example, you are being told to repetitively squeeze the pelvic bottom muscle. And they call it Mula Bandha. But the bandhas are locks. You have a throat lock and a root lock. But they are subtle, just like pranayama is subtle. So you're not actively squeezing a muscle. And many years of practice also have convinced me that actually the 3 bandhas occur naturally. And then reading the Hatha Yoga Pratipika, in this course, we will come across a sutra where Svatmarama actually confirms that they are engaged naturally, spontaneously. But in the beginning, because we are new to this, we have to approach it a little bit superficially by focusing on the bottom and on the throat. Mula Bandha, the root lock, you basically do by focusing on Muladhara Chakra. In the center of Muladhara Chakra is located Surya Bindu, the sun gate. By focusing on Muladhara Chakra, you allegedly close Surya Bindu, so there is no in or outflow of energy anymore. The throat lock is easier because you simply stretch up the back of your neck, you tuck in the chin, and basically that's the throat lock. You can do that in the beginning, you do that physically, but it becomes a natural occurrence. If you have paid attention, you have noticed when you concentrate on nada, you become straight. You know what happens when you become straight? How do you become straight? What is happening inside my body that straightens me? It's the engagement of muscles. My pelvis is engaged. Naturally, the pelvic bottom muscle is gently engaged. So I don't have to squeeze my pelvic bottom muscles deliberately. It's already happening. Only most people don't realize it. Your abdomen, which are normally in rest, when you erect, your abdomen are engaged. That is the third bandha that I will explain next week. The throat, when you meditate, and the more intense your meditation is, the straighter you become. And you end up sitting like this with a straight neck and the chin gently tucked in, naturally, spontaneously. Don't even have to do it on purpose. But for the sake of today's lesson, introduction of pranayama with the kumbhaka, we try to do this consciously and deliberately at first so that we can become familiar with it. Then in the future, we simply rely on trust. Because we notice every time we meditate, we become straighter, and you can actually feel the subtle, the emphasis on the word subtle, the subtle engagement of all those muscles. And that is why Svatmarama in some sutra says the 3 bandhas occur spontaneously. They're already in place before you even notice or realize. So in the beginning we focus on it, but for the rest, do not be too much distracted by it. Focus on the inflow and the outflow of the energy. And then, of course, the nada concentration that follows after it. Yeah?
One question.
Yeah, go ahead.
During Kumbhaka, is better to stop breathing or the slowly breath in and out?
Do not hold your breath. We're not insured.
How to
No.
differentiate?
Try not to. Look, this is not breathing. This is energy control. This happens all the time, that people are a little bit confused, especially people who already have experience with yoga, including breathing exercises. They have this idea that still it is breathing control. It is not. This is a mental exercise. Remember the Kriya exercises that you did. Because what you're doing here is swallowing a piece of cloth, which is the very first Kriya, Dauti, and you then expel the water from the anus, which is the second step of Vashti Kriya. This is why you learn the Kriyas. You're familiar with the concept of in and outflow of energy, both Shiva and Shakti. After the break, in the second session, you will learn the second and the third stage of this pranayama involve both energies. So we will come to that. This is basically just finger practice, like we have done in Gajakarani and the Bhastrika Kriya, the last two Kriya exercises we learned last week. So, formally, writing down what we do is Nadi, Sodhana, cleansing the energy channels according to this count: 12, 48, 24, 48, followed by nada, concentration. The time that you have left, you concentrate on nada. Because we add a new element to the meditation, the total time of meditation increases to 25 minutes. Now, why do we have this ratio 1:4:2:4? Why is inflow half the time of the outflow and 4 times as short as Kumbhaka? Why? It's important as critical yogis that you think about this. And there is a very clear practical reason. People, because of ego, they like to receive. We like to receive. So inflow is easy, it's the easy part. So it's the shortest activity. Kumbhaka is 4 times as long. Not because it's difficult, but because it's the important stage. Like with asana, the exercise is the trigger, but the effect takes place when you take a little rest after each asana. Here, the inflow of energy is supposed to have an effect, which takes place during the Kumbhaka stage. So it's the most important stage is where that energy is allowed to find its way, to settle down and change your condition. Now, why is outflow twice as long as inflow? This is a funny story. Very short. Because of ego, we like to receive. We don't like to give. You will notice that outflow really is actually more difficult than inflow. For inflow, all you have to do is open up and receive. Wonderful. But we also have to give. No matter how smart we are, how intelligent we are, or conscious we are, that's just how we function. And that's why it's twice as long. So, if you find it difficult still, grab back, refer back to your Kriya exercises. Swallowing a piece of cloth which you have done. Here in class you have done that at least 5 times. And possibly you've repeated that a couple of times at home. So this should be a piece of cake. It's all a matter of creative visualization. Same with the outflow. It's Vashti, expelling water. It's simply a matter of referring back to your Kriya exercises. If you've done the Kriya exercise, you're familiar with the feeling, with the idea, then you can do this based on feeling. You don't have to visualize anymore a piece of cloth going down the esophagus into the stomach and actually expelling water from the anus. Because in the end it will become just a feeling. Okay?